What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 4 top 20 tight end rankings. Already posted the quarterbacks today. Defenses will be out also. If you enjoy, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. But let's just dive right into the rankings. And starting off in Tier 1, I'm still going to have my top 2 coming into the season. Some people might say, this is holding on to your priors. Bowers hasn't produced, up to Tier 1 caliber. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but I do think he's working back from this knee injury. He had a really strong week 1 despite leaving early with that knee injury. He only logged one limited practice, heading into week 2. Didn't look like the same guy, was healthier heading into week 3, but still wasn't quite there. I think he's just going to get healthier and healthier. Even when he's not 100%, he's still commanding solid volume. And if you have Brock Bowers, he's obviously going to be in your lineup. So he is still going to be my tight end 1. Then I have Trey McBride here. 3 just solid games, 12.1, 13.8, 15.3 PPR points. Best fantasy game in week 3, 5 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown. Still view McBride as a high-end tight end 1. Then moving into a very, very strong Tier 2. Going to start off this tier with Jake Ferguson going up against the Packers. And Jake Ferguson has just emerged as a target hog. He's commanded 26 targets in the last 2 games combined. You now have CeeDee Lamb missing time. It is going to be George Pickens and Jake Ferguson just getting peppered with opportunities. Obviously, this Cowboys offense, the ceiling is much lower. So is the floor. This is a tough matchup against the Packers. But just based on volume, I think Jake Ferguson is a really solid play. Then in that same matchup, I have Tucker Kraft, obviously going up against the Cowboys. He is dealing with a knee injury. Didn't put together a great week 3, but the Packers are going to put up points. They're tied for the second highest implied point total. Tucker Kraft's been really solid, tied in 5 in points per game. He's flashed that weekly upside like we saw in week 2. And just in terms of getting into the end zone, he is probably going to be one of the top tight ends in touchdowns at the end of the season. Then my tight end 5 is going to be Tyler Warren. He's leading all tight ends as a rookie in receiving yards. I do think this could be a more pass-heavy game script. The Colts are actually underdogs in this one, 3.5 points. They've kind of been cruising to wins in some of their previous games. So maybe there's more passing volume, more opportunities for Tyler Warren. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Juwan Johnson. Just continues to log really solid games. He is second at the tight end position in targets. He's put up 15.6, 15.9, and 11.1 PPR points. That's all while only scoring 1 touchdown. The only issue is just this Saints offense is so brutal. They have 16 implied points this week per Vegas, which is unbelievably low, but his usage continues to be strong. He's commanding volume. Seems like he has a pretty high weekly floor just in terms of getting involved in this offense. So he will come in here as my tight end 6. Now moving into tier 3, we're going to start off with Sam Laporta going up against the Browns. Hasn't had a super strong start to the season. The big issue has just been him not getting into the end zone. On this Lions team, they're going to put up a lot of points. You would think that Sam Laporta would have that touchdown upside. It just hasn't come through so far this season, 0 touchdowns. The Lions are tied for the second highest implied point total, but he just doesn't have a super high weekly floor. They're obviously going to feed the running backs when they're near the goal line, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and so Laporta just hasn't seemed like a super high upside or even high floor option. But when you're getting into this area of tight end, you are just kind of looking for those guys on good offenses who can put together, those decent touchdown games. Another guy who kind of fits that mold is Dalton Kincaid, but he's actually been getting into the end zone. So in his 3 games, he's put up 14.8, 7.7, and 17.6 PPR points. The Bills are the highest projected offense by far this week with an implied point total of 32.5. So the opportunities are going to be there. Kincaid snaps, his route participation, they're not great, but he's come through 3 weeks. He's a fairly talented tight end on arguably the best offense in the NFL. He's a strong tight end 1. Then we have someone coming off a monster week 3. It is Hunter Henry. He was solid week 1, rough week 2, major bounce back in week 3, commands 11 targets, 8 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is also a pretty nice matchup here against the Panthers, where the Patriots have the 8th highest implied point total. So I think Hunter Henry's nice as a back-end tight end 1. Then I have Travis Kelce, just kind of continues to underwhelm. He's put up 12.7, 10.1, and 6.6 PPR points. I think maybe you could make the case that if Xavier Worthy's back, it could open some things up for him. At this point, like, it's very clear his, skill has taken a big hit at this point. He is certainly a shell of his former self. You're just kind of hoping he can get some weekly volume, and maybe if this offense turns around, he'll get involved in the touchdown department. It's tough to see him being more than like this back end tight end one. Maybe if he gets lucky with touchdowns, he could end up being a mid-tier tight end one option, but certainly a rough start to the season here for Travis Kelce. The last guy in this tier is going to be Zach Ertz. In his 3 games this season, he's put up 11.6, 18.4, and 6.8 PPR points. Could see an uptick in volume with a potential Terry McLaurin injury. We don't really know what's going on with the quarterback situation. Is it Jaden Daniels? Is it Marcus Mariota? Either way, I think Ertz is a fine, like, fringe back-end tight end one. Then moving into tier 4, going to start off this tier with Mark Andrews. And Andrews is honestly impossible to rank because he was completely unplayable through 2 weeks, 1.5 and 1.4 PPR points. So you're probably not feeling great about playing him in week 3. And then he just goes out and has a monster game, 6 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns, puts up 27.1 PPR points. And I did mention this in last week's ranking video where I talked about how in 2024, it was like the first 3-4 weeks of the season, he was just abysmal. He was terrible, did nothing. And then all of a sudden he just turned it on, started getting into the end zone. I was like, I can't say that's going to happen this season, but it is something we saw take place last year. Maybe this is the start of something here. We'll also have to monitor the potential return of Isaiah Likely, but he is just kind of a high ceiling, high floor weekly option where he could truly just straight up burn you in your lineup by catching one pass for like 4 or 5 yards. But he does have those high ceiling games in there where he can get into the end zone. He's on one of the best offenses in the NFL. So tight end 12 feels about right. Then at tight end 13, I have TJ Hawkinson. Really strong week 3 after a rough start to the season, 5 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. I'm still having a tough time getting fully excited about TJ Hawkinson here. You have Carson Wentz at quarterback. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's the clear-cut number 1. And then now you have Jordan Addison coming back in. So I don't love this passing attack. Hawkinson's probably the number 3 target now. It just doesn't feel like a super fun spot for fantasy, but like, if you picked him as like your mid-round tight end, like he certainly is still somewhat playable, but you obviously don't feel amazing about it. Then I have Dallas Goedert, 1 reception in week 3, but he made the most of it, 33-yard touchdown. We did finally see the Eagles' passing attack kind of bounce back, but it just doesn't feel like that's how they want to run their offense, which is kind of frustrating. And when you're competing for targets and potentially limited targets with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, it's just tough to be ranked as like a top 12 tight end at this point just because your weekly floor is so low. And Goddard's never been like a super high weekly ceiling guy. Also in this tier, I have Kyle Pitts. 3 pretty consistent games, went 7 for 59 in week 1, 4 for 37 in week 2, and then 4 for 39 in week 3. Still hasn't gotten into the end zone. For Pitts to be ranked higher, we're really going to need to see Penix just straight up improve and play better because what we saw in week 3 and even honestly week 2 is just not going to cut it here to support these weapons, especially like the potential number 2 or 3 target in Kyle Pitts. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be David Njoku. We saw him outproduce Harold Fannin for the first time this season. He's been pretty consistent in 3 games. Week 1, 3 for 37. Week 2, 4 for 40. Week 3, 5 for 40. So he's around that like 40-yard marker, just continues to improve in the reception department. I do just think that if Fannin's usage kind of sticks from what we saw in week 3, then it does make Njoku a better option. Obviously, the touchdown upside is just going to be limited on this offense, but he's a talented player. This is like mid-tier tight end 2 territory. And then the 5th and final tier, going to start off with Brenton Strange, coming off his best game of the season, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 61 yards. I think there's this really interesting window with Brenton Strange where you look at the wide receiver room, De'Ami Brown's banged up, you have BTJ, who's just been brutal to start off the season. Travis Hunter really hasn't found his footing in the offense. And so in a pretty talented wide receiver room, like no one's really stepping up and earning those opportunities or really coming through with those opportunities. So this could be a window where Brenton Strange is just fairly productive as like a nice, reliable option for Trevor Lawrence. After Strange, I'm still going to roll with Harold Fannin. Like I mentioned with Njoku, his usage did take a hit. His route percentage fell all the way down to 53%, which for pretty much anyone other than Harold Fannin would just be completely unplayable. Like that usage is just not startable at the tight end position. But he's extremely talented. He was still fairly involved. 4 targets, 3 receptions for 25 yards. I believe he had a bigger play that got called back because of a hold. And then I'm also just not confident that that route participation is going to stick. Like, I just don't think you go back, you watch the film, and you only want Harold Fannin running routes on like half the dropbacks. Like, I just don't think that's optimal for this offense. He's proven to be a legit weapon, and they do need weapons here on this Browns offense. Then I'm going to go with someone who's really done nothing this season, but I do think could be in store for a week 4 breakout. It is Colston Loveland. I really liked Loveland heading into the season. His usage through 2 weeks, I guess, into week 3 had been really rough. But I think he was going to be on his way to having a big week 3 before leaving with that hip injury. It doesn't look like it's super serious. It does look like he's in play to give it a go against the Raiders this week. And in week 3, we saw him run 5 routes. He was the first read on 3 of those. We saw Ben Johnson really make an effort to get Luther Burden involved. They scheme up the flea flicker going to Burden. And so I felt like after 2 weeks, the Bears kind of evaluated things. They realized, you spent legit draft capital on both Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. They hadn't been super involved early on in the season. And so it felt like they went into that game, with the idea of getting these guys involved. I mean, Loveland early on has a 31-yard reception. Luther Burden, like I mentioned, had a big game. And so I do think we could see a breakout from Colston Loveland. Obviously, in a normal sized league, he's the tight end 19. You don't feel amazing about playing him. But if someone dropped him, if he's still out there, if it's in a deeper league, I do think this could be an interesting week for Colston Loveland. And then the last tight end in my rankings is going to be Chigo Okonkwo. Week 3, solid game, 6 targets, 5 receptions for 66 yards. This is just a really awful offensive environment, passing environment. Like, the Titans have 15.5 implied points this week. It's brutal. Chigo Okonkwo does lead, I believe, across the board in targets, receptions, and receiving yards on this offense. So he's, making an impact here. It's just like the pie he's getting a piece out of is just so small because the offense is just not great. So it wouldn't feel great playing him. Maybe if they start to improve throughout the season, then he could be an interesting option. But that is going to wrap it up for my top 20. If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for stopping by. Check out the other rankings videos, and I will see you guys in the next one.